Pastoralism has been the backbone of many African societies for millennia, shaping economies, social structures, and spiritual traditions. In pre-dynastic Egypt, during the Nakada period, cattle stood at the heart of life along the Nile Valley. More than just livestock, they were symbols of wealth, status, and survival. A trend that remains intact in pastoral African societies today, forming a sacred thread that connects ancient and contemporary African cultures.
And as we have said before, all of these we can see, they have names. Each of these cows has a name. This is what actually what makes them unique from other cows in the world. Here, every cow will have a name. This brings the kind of attachment between the farmer, the one who takes care of the cows, and the cows themselves. There is that kind of bond because each of them has a name, which is, I think, it is not common in other breeds of cows or anywhere else in the where they raise cows. Because as I said before, and I have always told you, cows are part of the Banyankori and the Bahima here in Western Uganda. That's why they give each one of them a name, because they are friends. They are friends to the cows, and there is that bond which is always there.
The Nakada period marked a crucial phase in Egypt's prehistory. Before the rise of the pharaohs, when the society was in the process of formulating the habits that would later embody what we today regard as the greatest civilization in history, the people of the Nile Valley thrived on agriculture and pastoralism. Integral to this culture was the domestication of Africa's unique breed of cattle. These long-horned cows were seen as far more than mere resources. They were respected as companions and revered as emblems of power and prosperity, much as they are today. Excavations at sites like Nabta Playa in the Western Desert reveal the early domestication of the African taurine cattle, or Bos taurus africanus. These cattle were essential to the survival of these communities, many of whom had migrated away from the drying Sahara to the contrasting fertility of the Nile Valley. By the time of the Nakada period, cattle were fully integrated into their economy, depicted in art and celebrated in rituals. This remarkable terracotta figurine, excavated in 1907 from a tomb at El Mamariya in southern Egypt, is one of the oldest objects in the Brooklyn Museum's collection. It portrays a woman with arms raised above her head, her hands pointed inward, in a pose that has puzzled Western academics for decades. Many have speculated about its meaning. Was it a gesture of praise, a depiction of a goddess, or a ritual posture?
Right now we're looking at something called simply female figure. This is really such a mysterious piece, isn't it?
It is, because we know so little about it. It was discovered by the Brooklyn Museum's first excavations in Egypt in 1907, and it is the oldest work of Egyptian art in our galleries, and probably the oldest thing in the entire museum.
It's amazing.
It was made about 3500 BC, so it's well over 5,000 years old, and it shows the figure of a woman with her arms stretched out over her head. She's wearing only a white skirt, and her body actually comes to a point at the bottom. I think probably one of the reasons it's my favorite. It's the kind of object we can talk about and speculate endlessly, but we're never really going to know exactly who she was.
Perhaps? Or could the answer be simpler? When we examine the pose closely, a fascinating pattern emerges. The arms appear to curve backward like the horns of the Ankole cow, a breed central to the cultural and spiritual life of Central Africans and early Egyptians. The thumbs point forward, meaning the palms face upward, and the arms gently curve, mimicking the elegant presentation of taurine horns. This seemingly peculiar and unique pose, however, is not lost to time. In fact, it continues to play a very current and important role amongst populations that have maintained their ancestral pastoral traditions. If one observes the cultures of the modern societies that keep the Ankole Watusi breed of cattle, such as in Burundi, Rwanda and Uganda, the exact pose seen in the figurine is expressed in traditional dances. The dance in many ways seems to act as a complementary rite of passage that follows these domesticated African cows, an ancestral feature that unites their keepers. In many African societies, the Sanga cow, Africa's native breed, domesticated by the ancient Egyptians, remains sacred. Its long, graceful horns are celebrated in rituals, dances, and art. The Ankole Watusi variant, for instance, holds significant cultural importance among African communities, particularly in Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi. Among the Bahima of Uganda, these cattle signify prestige and social rank. They are rarely slaughtered for meat.
In western Uganda, actually this breed of the cows is called the Watusi breed. It is known as a sacred breed of the cows that people take as part of them in their cultural tradition. In the family, sometimes you find that it goes in generations. They are not necessarily for meat. You have cows just for prestige. Some of them, they take, the more cows you have, the more prestige you have, or the more you are respected in the society. Also, about the Ankole cows, many people, even outside this tribe of the Bahima, have started to like it because of the advantages it has over other cows.
The Banyankore people revere them as symbols of abundance, while the popular traditional dances, locally known as Igishakamba, Amaraba, or Inyamibwa, mimic the silhouette and graceful movements of these majestic animals. Whilst the origins of the various dances are unknown, the Igishakamba dance is performed during weddings, ceremonies, and important cultural events. Notably, Igishakamba dancers and drummers express communal desires, values, and collective creativity. Dr. Jacques Nzabonimpa, Director of Culture and Research, says that in prehistoric Rwanda, people inhabiting a certain place would have their own style of dancing. He cites Ikinimba of the Bakiga people in the southwestern part of Uganda and Igishakamba of the Bahima. The raised arms of the figurine echo the poses of dancers who honor the cow's beauty and sacredness. Could this be a continuity of reverence spanning nearly 6,000 years? Throughout pre-dynastic Egypt, cattle were central to life and death. Rock carvings and pottery frequently depicted long-horned cattle, symbolizing fertility, strength, and prosperity. In burial practices, cattle bones and figurines were placed in graves as offerings, underscoring their spiritual importance. Ankole cattle are descendants of an ancient breed of cattle that lived in the Nile River Valley around 4000 BC, and are often referred to as the cattle of kings because they appear in Egyptian hieroglyphs. They are known for having the largest and widest horns of any cattle species. This cultural legacy persists across Africa. In Rwanda, Uganda, and beyond, the elegance of the Ankole cattle is celebrated through art and dance. These traditions suggest an unbroken thread of cultural continuity that seem to extend throughout Africa's Great Lakes, right up to Egypt's Nile Valley. Linking Egypt's pre-dynastic art to its pastoral culture allows us to understand the female figurine of Elma Maria as more than just an artifact. It is perhaps a snapshot in time, a still captured as testament to a vibrant African tradition. It potentially bridges the distant past with the living cultures of today, reminding us of the deep connections we have with those ancient communities. It ties together the very earliest evidence of life in the Nile Valley and the very present contemporary pastoralist communities of the modern day. For several millennia, Africa's unique long-horned cattle have been a symbol of life, strength, and beauty. And perhaps by carving this elegant figure into clay, they left evidence that they too celebrated and honored these magnificent beasts through dance. Either way, they have left us a legacy that has endured as a timeless reminder that even 6,000 years ago, our traditions were not so different. Thank you for joining me on the King's Monologue. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like and subscribe, as I have lots more like it. Thank you to my patron supporters and production team. If you too believe my research has value, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Their support makes original research like this possible. Link in the description. And obviously, share this with someone who'd find it interesting.